Everybody to today's tutorial. Today we're going to be looking at selections using something called color range. So here on the screen in front of me I've got the completed image, so it looks like this, but it started off looking like this. Now you can download this image in the link below, and I encourage you to do that and get it into Photoshop so you can work alongside me as I'm explaining this tutorial. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to get it ready. So this is the screen that you will see once you've opened up Photoshop and you've opened up the image called flowers. You'll see this. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to look at this red flower here, and I'm thinking this is great, but what I'd like to do is I'd like to change the color of this red flower. So how can I go about doing that? So what we need to do is we need to come up to this selection option at the top here. We need to click select and then come down to color range. And when we do that, we're presented with this option box here, and it has a number of options available to us. Now what we could do is if we clicked sampled colors, we could click this and we could choose reds. And what you'll notice is Photoshop has looked at this image and it has found all the red dots or red pixels, and it's discovered that this flower is red, and we've got some red parts in the pink here, and everywhere that is white is showing us on this screen here, everywhere there's white is showing us an area that I would like to select. Now we could of course click this down and choose yellows, and because we have yellow in the scene here, Photoshop has analyzed this image and it is showing these yellow petals here. Now this is good, but it doesn't give us quite the control that we are looking for, so I'm not going to use these preset colors. And indeed you can choose highlights and it'll pick up all the highlights, very light areas here, or indeed shadows, and pick up the darker elements of the page. But we're not going to do that. We're going to click sampled colors. And what this does is it gives you a little pipette. As you can see, my mouse is turned into pipette, and anywhere we click, Photoshop will be looking at those particular colors and registering them over here. So I'm going to go ahead and click my red areas, and what it's noticed is there's a little bit of red here in the middle of the scene and a little bit of red down here. So what we're going to do is we're going to need to add to this, because it's noticed it's very precisely picked up one shade of red. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click the plus here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to click in different areas trying to get to dark parts of the red flower and lighter parts, and just go around like that. Happy with my selection, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and click OK here. Now what Photoshop has done is it has made these selection or marching ants around these red areas in the scene, and I can now work with these red areas. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come down here to our layers area, and there's this circle with a black and white blob on it, and this is the area to select our adjustment layers. You don't need to worry about what they are for now. All we're going to do is we're going to click our adjustment layers, and there's a little down arrow, and we can scroll to hue and saturation. And what it will do is Photoshop will give us some options here to change some colors. So just so you can explain, saturation amounts refers to the amount of the color. So if I pull the slider over to the right, you can see our reds become very much redder, or we could go the other way and take the color, in this instance it's red, out of the image, so now it's looking much more black and white in the image and a much more gray tone. I generally like to leave it in the middle there. Likewise, we can adjust our lightness or darkness, and this is going to change the characteristics of the color. We need to be careful with this. Don't go too crazy, because it has a very strong effect on the image. But what I'm going to bring to your attention is hue, and this refers to the tone of the color. So we can of course change the hue of our color from a red rose all the way to any color that we want, and I quite fancy going for some yellow tones here. So I quite like that. I'm going to leave that as it is. Now what I'm noticing is there's another color here, these blue and purple colors here, and I quite fancy changing them as well. So in order to do that, I'm going to come down to my original background layer. At the moment I'm on the adjustment layer. I need to click into my background layer to make sure I'm on that layer, and then I repeat the process. I simply go up to selection and to color range. I make sure that I'm on sampled colors, and then I go ahead and pick up my blues, and we want to get light and dark areas, remembering to click the plus. We want to get light and dark areas here of the different blue tones that we want to work with. Okay, So I'm going to come over here and get some purples as well. I quite fancy all these purples. These look great. So I'm happy with these selections, and I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. So now I've got all these marching ants all the way around my different colors. Exactly as before, I'm going to select my adjustment layer options down here. I'm going to click this and I'm going to scroll all the way down to hue and saturation. Exactly as before, I can change all these parameters, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to move them until they become a sort of red color, or you can come the other way. Why not? Let's go green in this instance. So we've turned these blue flowers into green flowers. Why not? And one last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to just change the yellow element in this flower scene. Then what we're going to do is we're going to come to our background layer down here. Exactly as before, I'm going to use select and I'm going to go for color range. Exactly as before, I'm going to make sure I'm on sampled colors, and I'm just going to click in the yellow scene here and pick up some different yellow colors, ensuring that I click plus at the same time. So here we are, I'm picking up some different yellow colors. I'm liking that, so I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. Exactly as before, now that I've got a selection around some yellow areas, I'm going to drop down my adjustment layers. I'm going to click up, I'm going to choose hue and saturation, and exactly as before, I'm going to make some changes to the yellow color to be something slightly different. So obviously it's a very unusual scene that we've created here, but this is just to show you the power of Photoshop and how we can selectively select different colors using the tool color range.